Today's guest we have the pleasure of bringing on the show is legendary Arizona Hall of Fame high school coach and current Yavapai Junior College pitching coach, Jerry Dawson. JD, thank you for coming on and answering some questions about your life and your career.
My pleasure to talk to you anytime I can.
Yeah, likewise. I know it's been a while, but definitely want to branch out and get your story and your coaching advice and everything you've experienced over your lifetime in baseball out to as many people as I can reach.
This is going to be one long podcast then.
Well, I'll split it up into however many parts I need to.
Fair enough.
all the content we can get is appreciative. But yeah, so anyone who pretty much has played high school or college baseball in Arizona has most likely heard of your name or knows a little bit about you. But for people that have never had the chance to get to know you, can you just give us like a quick background of your life before baseball and how you got into playing and coaching and some of the things you've accomplished on the way?
Born and raised in a small town or small farm in central Missouri. Went to Missouri State University. Tried to play there when they first started the program. Had a fairly severe ankle injury that basically ended my playing career. Did not want to stop competing. So coaching is kind of my way to compete. So I probably started my coaching career with an American Legion team in Willard, Missouri, which is a small town just outside of Springfield, Missouri, in the summer of 1965. Served 2 years in the military, 1 year in Vietnam. Worked for the city of Scottsdale after the military, to include being a Scottsdale police officer. Started teaching in 71. Chaparral High School opened in 1972, and I went there as one of the original staff.
Wow, I did not know that.
That school, actually the first year was a JV freshman programs only. And then they started varsity programs with team sports at least in 73, 74. So I was the first varsity coach in that program starting in 1974. Retired 37 years later because my wife wanted cooler weather. We moved to the Prescott area, and I had done USA baseball with Coach Schmelzer, who was the head coach at Yavapai at the time. And so I'm still doing it 12 years later.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely cover all that from, being a high school coach. You've got a lot to talk about, and a lot of the victories and people you've coached in high school, and then on to your coaching career at Yavapai, where you've also accomplished a lot. But yeah, your first couple, I didn't know that you were like the inaugural year basically of Chaparral High School. That's amazing, because obviously, I went to school, graduated in 2015, so I had no idea how long Chaparral has been around for. But yeah, so how was that like stepping into a role like that at Chaparral and basically starting a brand new team? How are you able to start a team like that and then gain success and become a championship team?
That, we actually opened in the fall of 72 on double sessions at Saguaro. Our athletics in the morning and went to school in the afternoon. We moved onto our campus in January of 73. And then, like I said, started varsity sports in the 73, 74 school year. So, it was pretty special actually, because we started with 650 students and freshmen and sophomores only. And you watched it grow. You added a junior class, you added a senior class. We coached 20 years before our first state championship. And
Wow.
So the first one was special, but they all were. I was blessed to have great kids. But we had won region titles. We had won, region tournaments. We had gone to the state tournament. We had been state runner-up, but we just hadn't gotten over that hump and won the final game, which only one team gets to do.
Right.
Until 20 years in.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, just looking at what you did in Chaparral, I mean, you taught physical education for 30 plus years. You served as the physical education department chair for 25 plus years, and then the school's athletic director for 20 plus years as well. All while, being a coach at Chaparral, and ended up leaving your mark there as like an Arizona Hall of Fame high school coach. But
Well, yeah, I think growing with the school, I had taught 1 year prior to that at a middle school, Kokopah, which is a feeder to Chaparral. So it kind of made it, I don't know if it made it more special, but it made it more interesting because young people I'd had in a PE class as third graders eventually were freshmen in high school and
right.
eventually played varsity, hopefully varsity baseball. So
Yeah, you kind of get to see them grow a little bit more than you
right.
do in junior college right now, where you just see guys pass through 2 years and then
maybe
on to
more.
other things. I mean, like, just at Yavapai, I'm sure you've had countless amount of guys go to professional level and also Division 1, but it's also a different world seeing little kids from third grade grow up and become semi-mature and
Right.
begin their baseball career basically, and like the competitive nature. Like
Yeah, at the high school level, when you're trying to grow a program, you ran camps and clinics and all the way down to the third and fourth grade. And the last year I coached, I think I stayed in 2010. I think I stayed because I had 5 little brothers on that team.
wow,
So little guys that had hung around the field since they were maybe fourth graders.
right,
And
yeah,
it just was, it was kind of special to have young men that were the third and fourth brothers in over the years. So I
yeah,
think
no,
your association is much deeper in high school because you've known the families and you've known them so long. In junior college, it's good and bad, but you only have them 2 years, so you don't have the time to develop the relationships that
right,
perhaps you do in high school.
or at least it's a lot harder. But
Yes, you get
yeah,
more time with them, but it's still you don't have that. You don't have years. You have 2. If you're
especially
lucky to have them 2 years.
yeah, especially like being able to be a teacher and stuff
Yes.
while you're be doing athletics. You might have those
Right.
kids running through your classroom as well.
Oh yes.
So yeah, and some of those kids were future major leaguers like Paul Konerko and Ike Davis and Brian Bannister. Was there anything that you noticed personally about their work ethic or personality that kind of stood out to you that hinted towards that they might have a future in like the major leagues?
I don't think you can predict the major league. I never tried to. I felt like I could do a decent job of predicting the next level.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I was most proud of at Chaparral's during my time there, we turned out 7 guys that had played in the big leagues, and that's not bad for one little high school.
Yeah.
Paul's probably the most famous name, although
Mm-hmm.
Brian right now is the director of pitching for the San Francisco Giants and certainly making a name for himself in that regard. I think their focus, in some cases, their maturity, but I can't say that in every case. But their focus, they just seem to have a different intensity level, a different quest for knowledge
Mm-hmm.
than the average guy that comes through.
Almost like asking more questions, more into the game, wanting to learn stuff like that.
Banny's dad was a 16-year major league pitcher, so he had been around the game forever. Ike's dad was a major league pitcher. Paul's dad and brother was not. So you get all the different areas of the spectrum, but you just it's how fast they grow in the game, how intense they are, how well they listen, their willingness to work. We worked extremely hard. We built our whole program based on the premise that we would outwork everybody else.
Yeah.
So any time to lose or win, we planned to win because we deserved it more than everybody else did.
So basically, seeing how coachable your kids are and how hard they are, willing to work. And I mean,
it had a lot to do with, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think some of those things are what it takes to become like a championship team?
Well, I think you have to. You've got to have you've got to have good health. You've got to have good luck.
Right.
Arguably,
Yeah.
the best team talent-wise we ever had there was '93, and we
Mhm.
didn't win it. We had some great teams after that, but just pure talent. We turned around and won it in '94, which was our first one. And I look back and there's, you know, a starting shortstop and number one and number one and number two pitcher and a starting outfielder that you add to that '94 team, but we couldn't get by. You
Yeah.
got to be healthy at the right time. You've got to be a bit lucky. It's the same in
Yeah.
Major League Baseball. It's the same in minor league baseball. It's not always the best team. It's the team is playing best that last month and a half of the season when the playoffs come around.
Exactly right. I mean, I think that's what everybody saw in the Braves last year too. I
Yes,
mean,
exactly.
all the powerhouse teams that came through there, and then they were the team that stayed healthy and outworked, and
Yep.
and they were able to play the best in the last couple weeks or months of the season, however long, however long
Exactly.
that is. But
Exactly. They
was there
got their
anything?
guys back and
Yep.
played well together.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so you said your first championship title was in 1994, right?
Correct.
Was there anything that you remember that is like memorable to you after spending the first, like, what do you say, 20 years of the program not winning, to be able to finally win a championship?
I think the thing that probably kept my sanity was we did win. We just didn't win the last game. We turned out good players. We won region titles. We won, conference titles, league titles, and we 37 years. We only had 2 seasons where we didn't have a winning record. We had one 500 record and one below 500 record. And so, as a coach, I kept trying to hang my hat and my philosophy on player development. My first responsibility to those young people was to help them develop as baseball players, as student athletes, as good citizens, as people that would be welcome in the community, and success in life after sports.
Mm-hmm.
Because most people, there's life after sports. I've been in
Yeah.
baseball 52 years. I'm the only child basically that haven't gotten out of sports after 52 years, but even that will happen for me unless I die on the field. Anything can happen.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you've already coached a long time, and I mean, just as Chaparral, you had 773 career victories and only 301 defeats. I mean, coming from a brand new school to 20 years later winning your first championship, and then over the next 17 years being, kind of like a dominant high school program. That's something in itself. I mean, you included 8 championships in that, 2 runner-ups, and just a countless amount of winning years. So that's incredible in itself.
That probably is what I'm most proud. I'm most proud of the kids
Yeah.
because we played in a tournament yesterday. There was 3 of the guys stopped by the game. And, Chaparral guys stopped
Oh,
by
that
the game
are
to say
that are
hello.
in college now.
No, they're out. They're one of them's
Oh,
50
all the way
years
done.
old. Yes, and they just saw we were playing and stopped by to say hello. And got a text from another one last night asking how we did. A guy like Andrew Gross texts me and
Hmm.
says, "Can we talk on a podcast?" It's that probably to me meant more, or at least came more to meeting my goals than the wins and losses did. I wanted to have a relationship with the young people. It was positive. Probably as a head coach, there is no doubt I was extremely hard on them. We practiced 6 hours on Saturdays. And today's world, I wouldn't get away with it because this society right now has gone soft. But like I said earlier, we worked so hard. When it come time to win and lose, we felt we deserved it, so we did it. And
Yeah. I mean, I know.
maybe I brainwashed them. I don't know, but I
No.
think I brainwashed
Brain.
them in a good way because that's life. When it comes time to
Yeah.
win or lose, whether you're in business, whether you're on a professional baseball team, whether you're a teacher or whatever you're doing, there's going to be wins and losses. And I expect to, if we're keeping score, I plan to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, brainwashed or not, you can call it what it is, but a lot of the stuff that you've taught me at my short, 2 years at Yavapai, and coming into that and basically not knowing how to pitch and turning it around and figuring out how to pitch and developing stuff like a routine and a mentality and being able to outwork somebody, basically a completely new start to my career. Like all the stuff, maybe it's as little as like a band routine that I still do from, when you've taught me back in whenever that was, 2016 or something like that.
15 and 16.
Yeah, 15 and 16, or something about how to handle yourself when you're out there in a big situation, or in Grand Junction when you're pitching in
Yes.
front of a lot of fans for the first time in your life. I mean, that's why I believe that I'm still able to do that, luckily and thankfully, that I can be calm out there and pitch in front of 7,000, 8,000 fans and know I'm
Yeah.
going to be healthy because of the program and routines that you've taught me from the base. And that's something I've got to always be thankful for sure.
Work ethic, you had a great work ethic. You were willing to grow and you were willing to accept ideas, try ideas. And that's why you were a success with us, and that's why you're still a success.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why I've basically created this whole thing, is to try to help other people find things that will, you know, help them become more individual and give them a reason to want to continue to keep, whether it's whatever business or teaching or playing
Exactly.
baseball, everything kind of goes down to the same fundamental concepts of,
Exactly.
working hard and wanting to learn and being open-minded and stuff like that for sure. Um, so yeah, you spent 37 years at Chaparral. I mean, that's a long time to be a coach at one place. Uh, and then you said your wife wanted colder weather, so you went up to Prescott, to Yavapai.
Right.
Uh, how hard was it for you to leave basically everything that you've created at Chaparral?
Well, it was hard and it still is,
Mm-hmm.
because you got so much of your life invested in it.
Right.
But I had stopped teaching in 94. Actually taught for 33 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I had stopped teaching, I'd retired from teaching and just coached the last 5, uh, which was great. But I also realized that Father Time was catching up to me, and running a program, trying to maintain that level of excellence requires a lot more of you than being an assistant, even at the junior college level.
Which is something that I also know from personal experience. And I read one thing online that, you know, that you kept your field almost in immaculate shape, and you were one of the first people to ever include grass on the foul lines, right? To make it easier to bunt. Is that,
Actually,
or what
we
was the?
were a bunting team. There's no
Mhm.
question about that. But actually, eh, our field was in a floodplain. And as buildings and complexes grew north, which is uphill from us, uh, and asphalt got put in, more and more water came flooding right through our field. In 1979, we had 3 of the 100-year floods, the floods that are supposed to happen every 100 years. Well, 3 of
Yep.
them happened in the spring of 1979, and we washed first baseline, home plate, everything. We'd take 25 pickup loads of dirt just to get the baselines back. I had
Yeah.
worked for the city of Scottsdale prior to becoming a teacher, and Scottsdale has a green belt that goes down the middle of the city. They're basically east and west of Hayden Road. People who aren't familiar with Scottsdale won't understand it, but when I first came there, it flooded many times. And if you were one side of Hayden, you were stuck there. If you were the other side, you were stuck there. So when they put that green belt in, they put Bermuda grass in. Bermuda grass gets really deep, deep roots, and they depended on that to hold the floodplain in place rather than wash out. And it was interesting the first time I was working Parks and Rec then, the first time that we had one of the big floods, I went around the parks the next day and there were huge pieces of concrete washed out. But the places where the Bermuda had been, the root system, you could see it on the side of the bank where the concrete had pulled away. So not being very smart and not having any original ideas, I thought, why won't that work for our baselines? So we grew in baselines to protect our field. They helped our bunting game, no question about that.
Yeah,
One
I
helped the
mean,
other.
yeah, and then after all that time spent at Chaparral, you obviously have got the field dedicated to you, and your name is on the field as Jerry Dawson Field. Uh, what was that? What was that like for you having them name the field after you that you spent so much time of your life on?
That was one of the sneakiest thing that they ever pulled. How they got that through, and because I felt like I had a pretty good take on what was going on.
Yeah, and I know nobody usually gets anything through you.
And we had a brand new scoreboard, huge, big 9 inning scoreboard for back then for high school fields was unusual. And when they put it in with the big iron beams, they left way too much beam showing above the scoreboard. So I griped and complained to everybody that would listen. And the school didn't do this, the Booster Club did. To everyone that would listen, that we need those cut off. We need those cut off. And we're playing McClintock High School out of Tempe, a particular game. I remember because I would go out between my classes and get stuff set up for the game 5 and 10 minutes at a time while the classes changed. And as I go out there, I'm seeing a guy on a lift that's come in from the street from behind the scoreboard with something above the scoreboard with blue tarp on it. So I go out there to find out what it is. This is the first I had any idea what it was. And he sheepishly tells me, and I'm going to wring some people's necks, but you can't do it for being nice. So
Oh, he told you about it? They
the
planning
guy's
on
putting it up. He didn't have any choice because I'm standing right there looking at him.
Yeah, you think you kind of caught the surprise if that's what they were trying to
Yes,
plan.
yes. This is
So
going up at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we got a 4 o'clock game, and I didn't have a clue. So
so that was
that
while
was
you were
good.
coaching, they did that.
Yes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yes.
We had an
Uh,
alumni game a couple of weekends later. That was really cool. A lot of the guys came back.
yeah, and then
Always good
after,
to see alumni.
yeah, and all always those alumni games are a lot of fun. I haven't had a chance to participate in any of them because they're during my season still, but I mean, definitely after I'm done playing, I'll go back to the old Chandler High School alumni games and throw a sidearm if my arm can still handle it when I'm done. So
But we only had one in my 37 years, and it was that one. And
yeah,
I couldn't very well say no.
yeah,
So they had me on that one.
but
Very sneaky.
yeah, and like I said, nobody usually gets anything by you. Usually figure everything out. But
Yeah, I'd like to think I do, but obviously I don't.
oh, I'm sure being in junior college, those kids are new into college. They try to sneak stuff by you all the time. But
That's the head coach's problem.
yeah, that's
Not
probably why you just volunteered to be a pitching
I
coach
have
up
to
there
worry about
instead.
the 12 idiot pitchers. That's all I have to worry about.
A lot less to worry
Yes.
about. But yeah, so going on to Yavapai now. It's your 11th year there now currently, right?
Well,
12th year. What are some difference that you see between what players need to have to play at the high school level and at the college level?
biggest thing, honestly, is strength.
Mhm.
Uh, I wound up at Yavapai because in '03 or '04 I did USA Baseball. We went to Taiwan, played in the World Games. Head coach was Mark Johnson out of Cherry Creek, Colorado, legendary coach. And the hitting coach was Sky Smeltzer, who was the head coach at Yavapai at the time. And I did the pitchers, that was our staff. So Sky and I roomed together. He knew we had a house up there. We had bought it in '01 with the intention to eventually move up.
Mhm.
And so every year after that, he'd call me, you ready to retire, you ready to retire, ready to retire. So when I finally did retire in 10, why I knew I wanted to do something. I couldn't just sit down and do nothing. And I'd worked too hard my whole life. So I went over and helped him for 2, and then he left and went into business in Denver. And Coach Kogel, who was his assistant, took over. And in 15, we went to Grand Junction. It was
Mhm.
your freshman year, I think.
Yep.
And in 16, we went back and actually was able to win it, which is, that tournament is, people underestimate junior college baseball. I see
Yeah.
so many, I try not to recruit because I don't like telling people what they want to hear. I want to tell them the truth. But
Mhm.
recruiters have to tell them what they want to hear.
Yeah.
I just in the 12 years I've been there, I've watched how much softer the players are mentally. I blame a lot on club ball. There's some
Mhm.
really good club programs, but there's some club programs out there that are money-making ventures only.
Mhm.
They pay their money, they get to play. And if they don't play, mom or dad moves them to a different club.
Right.
So they don't have that toughness. They don't have that ingredient that you had, that Ryan turned you down 4 or 5 times, told you not to come.
Yeah, and I also only played for the same club team my whole life. I mean, I played since I was 4 until I was about 13. But
But Ryan turned you down four
yeah.
times at least, maybe 5, and you just kept coming back with another way in. And you're one of you, maybe my favorite story of all time, because um, there was there was no way you should have made that club.
Nope,
No
not a
offense,
chance. Nope,
not
not
a
a
chance.
chance.
You were 77, 78, and just perfect batting practice.
And that was a national championship year too.
Yeah.
In 16. That was 16 was my freshman year too. So
16 was your freshman year?
yeah,
Okay.
16 was my freshman year.
Okay. And that's right, JoJo was there. So
Yeah.
then 16. And that was a talented club, and you just plugged and plugged and plugged and wouldn't go away. Every teacher on campus loved you because you were a good student. So Coach Kogel was, how do I cut the kid? He's the nicest kid on the team. All the teachers love him. He's a 4.0 student. Can't believe I let you talk me into keeping him. And then one day you and JoJo are screwing around and you throw a ball sidearm. And JoJo says, hey, you need to look at this. And Drew Gross was born. But today's young people take no for an answer. They just go
Really?
someplace else.
Yeah.
Today's young people, you give them a major change like throwing over the top versus going sidearm, and most of them are going to say no.
Mm-hmm.
We have a young man on the club right now that we asked to do that, and he said yes, and he's headed to St. Louis University as a result.
There you
So
go.
because he made the change,
Yeah.
he trusted somebody to make the change. But our society has gotten so selfish, and so it's all about me, it's all about my son, it's all about this, it's all about that. I'm watching great high school coaches get fired because two parents don't like them,
Mm-hmm.
because they hold their kids accountable. And what we don't teach young people in middle school and high school and elementary school and college, it's going to come back to bite them somewhere along the way, because
Yeah.
eventually mom and dad isn't going to be able to buy it for them.
Exactly right. I mean,
That's the changes I've seen. I've seen society get softer, and the kids are the ones that's going to suffer the most down the line. As far as what players need to do, I think strength. There's a man strength. You can be in the weight room all you want, and there's strength and growth in the weight room. But there's a man strength that happens with young people somewhere around 19, 20, 21 most of the time. That's a different kind of strength. When it supplements the weight room strength, that's the guy that separates himself from somebody else. So, bigger, faster, stronger. Uh, there's so much technology out there, so much stuff available on the web. Not all of it's good, and that's a trap, because there's so many people out there wanting to take young people's money and their families' money to make them the next Mike Trout.
right.
And there's only one Mike Trout. And
Yeah.
I read an article. I still read a lot every night. And if somebody can find that Brian Bannister was just put on Twitter yesterday or day before, talks about when he was 11, his dad is pitched. He's running in spring training. He's running poles. And Brian got bored, as 11-year-old will do. And so he goes over and sits in the bullpen because there's a couple of guys and some old guy over there throwing. And he sits there and listens. And this kid is brilliant. He was brilliant when I had him. He's brilliant now. He's not a kid anymore, but he is to me. And he sits there and watches him throw, and he listens to the coach give them instruction. And as a 11-year-old, he noticed that they're two completely different pitchers. I mean, one of them is a high arm slot, one's lower, one's got a really high leg lift, one's got, a very modified leg lift. And the things that coach is telling them are different things, not just one size fits all.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling a blank on who the second pitcher was, but one of them was a guy named Nolan Ryan, who turned out to have a fairly decent career. And the instructor was a guy named Tom House, who very well might be, in my mind, the most recognizable pitching instructor in the country. But here, 25 years ago, he's giving two guys that are going to be extremely successful instruction side by side, but they're different.
Yeah.
Because different things for different people. Just like you can't be coached like the guy that's a high three-quarter guy.
Exactly.
Mechanics are different. And just because somebody played professional baseball doesn't mean they can instruct professional baseball.
Right.
Some of them are very good, but some of them, it worked for me, so it'll work for you. That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, and it is lucky that I am where I am, and I got selected by the Rays. They're a very open-minded,
yes.
highly qualified pitching organization, and all the technology that we have is crazy. I mean, from the time coming from Yavapai, and now we've got like force plates in the mound, and camera angles all around you watching you throw, and slow motion on track how much your ball spins and stuff. But it's just the thing that you were saying, being individualized over the course of this couple camps I've been doing. They've been really pounding into our head that your throwing program is individualized. Like, they give us drills and they say whether you want to do 0, 1, 2, 3 of those drills, feel free to do them, but individualize it towards your own specific needs, like what you need. And some guys might not choose to do anything, and that's either what they like to do or it's their loss. But I've picked out a couple that I like to do based off what I think I need to learn how to do, like use my legs more, and keep it individualized towards my future of understanding how to pitch better.
Right. Even in our level, the arm care we do is we're going to do that. That's pretty much dictated. But what other stuff you pick out from the multitude of things we give you to do on a daily basis needs to be geared to you. If you don't believe in it, you're not going to do it with the conviction that it's going to benefit you.
Right.
So if I can't convince you this will benefit you, then no matter how much I dictate it to you, it'll never be what it needs to be. But if I can sell you, if they can sell you, this is going to help you, then you'll focus and make the adjustments that need to be made, and get the reps done that needs to be done. So many reps necessary to make a change.
Yeah, the majority of it is just being open to change. That's pretty much it. Just like, I guess you could say I was open to change to throw sidearm, but you could say I didn't have a choice, but I still had a choice. I could have gone on and gotten cut, or made a choice. And I think that's important that a lot of kids learn that these days.
And the tough part for young people, because there's so much information out there now, the tough part is picking and choosing what information applies to me and what instructor, what he's saying, what he's doing, or even she today in the minor leagues. How does it help me? So being able to glean from all this information is probably equal as important as the information itself, because if you just buy it at blind faith, it may screw you up.
Yeah, there's so many instructors. I see kids that are like 6, 7 years old, just go into their local batting cage and and signing up for lessons, not knowing who they're going to get. And they're getting some kid that, has only played 3 or 4 years of high school. And then you got all these different club teams, like you said, and kids are, out on the field. I saw it. I coached summer ball for like 8 and 10, 13-year-old kids. And, these kids didn't like something. They'd cry. They were unhappy. They weren't having fun. And then when that didn't happen, their parents would just move them, and they go to a different club team and, pay an a high amount of money to basically let their kid play. And like you said, that's obviously not the right way to do that. But
it's the trend in society right now. And I
hear the way things are
hear
going.
Major League Baseball talking about, well, we have to be more inclusionary. We've got to reach more minorities and low income. But baseball, because of all this stuff, is pricing themselves out of the low income people. If you can't keep up with the Joneses because you don't have $1,000 a month to invest in a club team, maybe your son will be good enough to overcome that, but maybe he won't, quite honestly.
Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Sad state of affairs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much the club team I coached cost to play, but it definitely wasn't cheap. And those thoughts went through my mind, like, what are the kids that can't afford to play? Where are they playing? Like, what options do they have? And
they can't afford lessons, so they got to depend on somebody else. They're lucky dad knows what he's talking about, but
if they're lucky,
he's got to have the time to spend with him.
Right, exactly. Not everybody's got like the Brian Bannister kind of childhood growing up where his dad teaches him how to play professional baseball from a young age.
If you ever cross paths with him, and you might, because of the Giants, sit down and pick his brain. You'll be very impressed.
Yeah, I mean, I like to do that with all the like tenured guys that we've got. We've got one guy, Marty Demerit, who has been a big league coach for a long time. Reminds me a lot of you too. Calls it like he sees it. Does what he wants. Tells you, you should change this, and if that's what I see, and if you don't want to do it, then do it. Then I don't want to talk to you, basically, or something like that. But no, he's a great guy, and I always, think that kids, players, anybody, even coaches, like you said, you still read now. There's never a wrong thing to do when you're trying to like take in more information. There's never a wrong question, and always try to find the people that have the most experience in the game to ask questions to. And
we had 2 years ago that came out of Mesa Mountain View and couldn't throw a changeup, struggled to throw a changeup. And at the college level, you need to change up. I'm sorry, you do. Pro level, you need to change up. And we tried every grip I could think of, and he said, I've always never been able to throw those. I'm on the internet at night looking at change-up grips and change-up techniques. And, I've coached for 50 years and I'm still looking for something to find a way to reach that young man. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, one morning, I wake up and go, let's try this. And it worked for him. So,
yeah, I mean, the majority of pitching is just making small adjustments to figure out what works for yourself.
Yes.
Whether it's
be your own best version of yourself.
Yeah. And now with the amount of technology that you can add to it, like the amount of times I throw a bullpen and I throw a pitch and I see, that move this much, but I want it to move a little bit more. Now I know in my head that I maybe might need to move my thumb a little bit or put a little bit more finger pressure on it. Basically all because of the foundational like principles that you and Coach Kugel and all those coaches at Yavapai taught me how to like integrate that into my work ethic and be able to like fix that on the go kind of.
But you were so receptive, and that's a real credit to you. It really is. Because a lot of people, it worked for me in high school, why won't it work for me in college? Well, you get the same thing in pro ball. It worked for me in college, why won't it work for me in pro ball? Because everybody's a little bigger, a little better, a little faster, a little stronger.
Right. It's true.
When we get at the college level, the reason you need to change up in my mind is because at high school, you used to change up to the 3-4 hitter, and that's about it. But in college, every hitter in the lineup was a 3-4 hitter at high school. And then you go to pro ball, and every hitter in pro ball was a 3-4 hitter in college. So
Right.
you've got to keep up with the times and
Yeah.
make the adjustment needs to be made.
And Arizona JUCO is probably one of the most realistic college baseball experiences I've ever had. I mean, going from that to Division One, I still think junior college is more realistic. I mean, you got guys working harder, got
You
wood
got something to
bats,
prove.
all that. Yeah,
Those guys have something to prove.
yeah, and
And
then
in Arizona, at least, wood bats, huge. But Arizona, Texas, Florida, Southern California, along that Gulf Coast, boy, that's big time baseball.
yeah, it is. And
Because
then
of the weather, but still, it is.
yeah,
It's big time baseball.
yeah. But then even going to Texas and playing there, I realized it's a lot more of a business, and
Yes.
it's a completely different game, the way that it's treated, and and the way that you have to carry yourself throughout college, over JUCO and Division One, then if eventually onto pro ball. It's three completely different levels, and they're all treated completely different too. But
Adjustments. It's a game of adjustments.
that's all it is for everybody. But yeah, so you've done obviously a lot for careers, like in career paths during your life, like you said, serving as an MP during the Vietnam War, even serving one tour over in Vietnam and teaching physical education for 30 years, and being the department chair and the athletic director, all while coaching. And what were some of your most memorable years overall, like through coaching, through life as being an MP in the Vietnam War, both on and off the baseball field? What would you say?
Wow.
I know it's tough.
You
It's
told
kind
me
of
it's going to be some hard questions.
well, that's about as broad as it can get. So.
Vietnam was tough. And every guy that was there will tell you the same thing. And I didn't have it as bad as some, but I probably had it worse than most.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing for me was I didn't see my daughter till she was 8 months old. That's tough for a dad, especially your first child. And so I'm such a much better person having gone through that. 3.5 years as a police officer. I'm such a much better person having gone through that. I think the self-discipline, the structure that you've got to have just to survive those kind of situations. I brought those into my teaching and my coaching. I think that's why, as a head coach, I was so structured.
Yeah.
And I think it benefited me. Once I started doing the department chair, added responsibility, so I had to be more organized. Once they threw the AD at me, then I really had to be organized. So organization, I was a nut job about practice schedules. I do a week-long practice schedule rather than just day to day, so I didn't leave something out. I think that's something young coaches don't listen to me about, and I wish they did, because I think they'd like it if they did it. As far as memorable, I don't know. Every group in their own way is memorable, because there's not an individual, but there's a group of individuals. When somebody asks me what year was so and so, well, I got to figure out who else was on that club, and
right, like saying
was that
JoJo was there in
put a year
16,
on it,
right?
just like 16 and 15. Oh, okay, you were 16. JoJo was okay. Yeah, that's when you've done that many, you've got to have a separator, and the separator is always people, because the people are key to me. I don't claim to be very smart, but I knew I couldn't just sit down and stop working. When I left for Vietnam, I'm in the backyard. We lived on a small farm. I was in the backyard playing catch with my dad. That's what we did. Dad and I played catch, and that was cool to play catch with Dad. Much more cool for me now than it was then at 22, but still, we just played catch. During the time I was in Vietnam, they sold the farm, they moved to a small town, and he basically retired. So a man that had worked his whole life basically sat down and stopped working. And by the time I got back 12, 13 months later, he could hardly get out of a chair. Rheumatoid arthritis and other things, ailments. And I said to myself at that time, obviously you're going to die. Whether we like it or not, we're terminal. But I'm going to stay up and move and stay on the move as long as I can. And I have so many people that ask me, well, why are you still doing this? Because I enjoy it. And that's the only answer I have for them. I enjoy dealing with young people every single day. I think, I don't, like I said, I'm not smart, but I think it keeps me sharp mentally to have verbal confrontations with teenagers every day, verbal exchanges, not confrontations really. And just the fact that I have to get up and move. And Coach Kogel even asked me, he said, how many more years? And I said, when my health keeps me from doing it, my wife's health keeps me from being able to do it, or I stop enjoying going to the ballpark. And I can't tell you when those days is. Hope it's never.
I
Hopefully
think that
just,
last one's probably going to be never.
my wife, when I was a chaparral, I did a lot of our field work on Sunday. And every so often I'd be mowing the field or something, and I'd look up and she'd be walking our dog around the block. And when I got home, I'd say, everything all right? Said, yeah, I had a premonition that you had died and just keeled over on the field. So we came by to see if we could see you. As silly as this sounds, there's a lot worse ways to die. I told her, I
Yeah.
said, if I die, I fall off the mower. It's got a kill switch on it. It'll stop. And eventually somebody will see me laying out there. So humorous as that is, there's some truth to it too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on and answering all my questions. It's always a great time to talk to you. Best of luck in your current season with Yavapai, and I'll be following along and hopefully to see you guys in Grand Junction.
They do such a great job. You've been there. The
They
people in
do.
Grand Junction, they do. It's such an experience. And I tell kids all the time, I can't explain it to you, but we could be playing. We did play a mid-afternoon game in the elimination bracket, and there's 6,000 people there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you play a championship game, well, there's 11,000. Well, you kind of expect that in a championship game, but in an elimination game, two teams in the losers bracket, there's still 5,000 or 6,000 people there. The people in Grand Junction do such a great job of promoting it and supporting it. And I've been to Omaha as a visitor, never as a coach. And I watched those people, at least when they were in Rosenblatt, do such a great job of supporting it. I don't know about the new ballpark, but when they were in the old ballpark, Omaha really embraced it. But it's just special. They make it special.
It really
But
is.
guys like you make it special. So I thank you. I follow you, as you know, and every so often you get this tweet out of the blue. It means absolutely nothing, but it's still there anyway. So
Yeah. But
you're stuck
well,
with me. You're stuck with me. Sorry.
I have no problem with that at all. That's one of the best coaches that I've ever had for sure. Without a doubt. You taught me so much, and I carry a lot of the stuff that you've told me still with me today, and I will continue to do that through my coaching career and my life in general. So
No, thank you. It's very kind of you. You would have been fine. Your work ethic was too good, and your I'm not going away was too good. We had a young man who was on our club last year from Japan by way of Canada, and they have to take a TOEFL test, an English proficiency test. Sorry to extend this, but so he flunked it the first time. So I call him, talk to him, and it's writing and reading and verbal. And long story short, he took it 5 times. I'm going to pass it. I'm going to come to Yavapai. I'm going to pitch for you, which he did. He's at Grand Canyon now. My worry is that too many of our American kids right now, after they flunked it the first time, or certainly the second time, well, this ain't worth it. I'll just go do something else.
yeah.
So that's what worries me. It's missing with the last couple of generations.
Yeah. It took me 5 years to get accepted into Marine Corps Officer Candidate School.
Yes.
And, finally got that. I was 2 weeks away from going, and I got drafted. So
Yes.
I remember,
Different kind of draft.
yeah, different kind, completely different. Yeah, no, I remember calling up the guy at the officer candidate station and explaining to him that if I didn't take this opportunity, I for sure would regret it for the rest of my life. And funny enough, the guy did exactly the same thing I did. He was an ex minor league baseball player, and completely understood. You know, it's almost like everything is just lined up for this to
Play as
work
long
out.
as you can.
And I could for sure plan on it. And
The
even
the real world will still be here.
as much as I can continue to live, you know, as my career being a game, I'm gonna take advantage of that. But
Good luck, young man. I love you.
thank you. Love you too, JD.
Thanks again.